Sprint 3. Scrum rotate. All teams are again asked to stand up, walk a full circle clockwise around their table, sit in the seat one seat past where they had been sitting, rotate their product owner and Scrum Master roles, and have their new Scrum Master create a Sprint 3 burn down chart. For distributed and remote teams, we have them rotate their roles and use a gesture or micro ritual to emphasize the shift. In this case, for the Sprint 3 burn down chart, we label our new yesterday's weather as the average velocity of Sprint 1 and Sprint 2. At this time, points mean much more to the soon-to-be Scrum Masters, and creating the burn down chart begins to become more exciting. 2 team members have already created a sprint burn down chart when they were playing the Scrum Master role for their team. And they often are excited to help give tips as the 3rd Scrum Master begins trying it, likely for the very first time. It is not required to rotate who plays each of the Scrum roles each sprint. Role rotation is allowed and recommended. Organizations that do not allow the Scrum roles to be rotated, or for teams to trade players across teams at their own discretion, typically have a trust conflict, a command and control hierarchical structure, and often a track record of information hiding and unjust or at least unclear promotion and bonusing systems. These organizations tend to make decisions to maintain a power base or authority as opposed to maximum product advancement. Scrum can work even in these rigid organizations, and Scrum Masters are advised to gently and with empathy request permission to try more and more real agility in at least one team. If permission is granted, this team or team of teams becomes the proof of concept. As business performance can be seen to increase, first through the burn down charts and then as business delivery performance, the Scrum team or team of teams is likely to receive an indefinite waiver, allowing deviation from the prior company required processes that were in conflict with agility. As more teams are allowed, and soon after encouraged to be trained as Scrum Masters, and likely at this point even hire in expert Scrum Masters, often called agile coaches, to further improve business outcomes, the organization reaches a tipping point. This tipping point is where the company policy documents are rewritten and all staff is trained. This is what is called an agile transformation, which the Agile Business Institute facilitates globally. The rewriting of the company policies is typically performed with consultants, such as certified chief agile officers from the Agile Business Institute, and in the best cases is collaborative with all staff through the Meta Scrum pattern and scaled retrospective patterns of group agility. Day 2 opens promptly, on the minute if there is not a technical or logistics issue, even if not all attendees have yet arrived. We want to set the culture that punctuality is expected. At the same time, all are welcomed without passive aggression anytime they arrive, and the person currently playing the Scrum Master role in their team is invited to quietly help the team get the latecomer up to speed. This is just like the effective patterns and emotional behaviors in psychologically safe, high-performing teams. We don't need to know why someone was late. We respect and trust them that they made the healthy trade-off decisions based on what they knew at the time. We simply help them and the entire team to make the best teamwork possible with the team we have when we have them. If, on the whole, a team member is a distraction and lowers total team performance, it will be visible in the sprint burn down charts as a factor reducing the performance of the entire team. And we can have a discussion in a mature, open, respectful way about what impediments really are. More on this in chapter 15, Demo and Retro. Ultimately, in the absolute worst case, a toxic team member may result in the team and that team member adding a card to their team backlog. This card is to help that team member find another team, whether it is inside the company or in another company. This is extremely rare, but in extreme cases, it does happen. When it does happen, it is best handled with transparency, collaboration, and with all team members knowledgeable and participating. HR can, of course, be brought in to be involved if truly necessary. A reason for HR or human resources or agile people operations involvement would be if something illegal has occurred. HR may be another Scrum team, or in companies early on in their agile transformation, HR may still be a traditionally managed business group. In highly agile companies, HR is a capability and not a defined set of people. As long as all teams have access to HR capability immediately and reliably, HR can be distributed across teams, a role opted into as needed from a pool of trained staff, a cloud service from a separate providing agency, and even a set of AI guidelines overseen by a human, local, or remote. This, by the way, is a progression that is possible for most core business functions, including legal, catering, coffee, facilities, security, cleaning, etc. The Scrum Rotate is now complete. After all team members have seated, we review the homework from last night. The instructor asks a few simple questions. The purpose of the questions is not to check if the homework was completed. That would be reinforcing a low trust culture where employees are encouraged to only do work if it is checked. Instead, the purpose is to practice using any new synaptic connections that may have formed during sleep last night, which will release chemicals in the brain to myelinate these synapses. Myelin is a coating applied to synaptic connections that are often used, making them even more often in the used even more often in the future, and making the connections across them even faster. This is literally brain patterning. This is changing mindset, creating a new normal flow of thought, like a mental habit. This is what many agilists call an agile mindset. The agile mindset is what allows teams to very quickly make decisions that reduce the cost to make change across the business and integrate more quickly. Reducing the cost to make change then increases business performance. In the Scrum Master seminar, we attempt to model growing the agile mindset simultaneously with accompanying human-centered and health-guided practices. If successful, the improvement in business performance will be a habit, and practicing that habit will increase the quality of life of those in and serviced by the business. Chapter 11, Focus. Now, all team members have seated themselves in new seats. The Sprint 3 burn down chart is posted, and we play a video clip of an ultra high performing team. It is the Nordstrom Innovation Lab video with Joe's colleague, Jeremy Lightsmith, which we have mentioned in chapter 6, 353. The video is available here as of the time of this writing, and we recommend you watch it now and then resume the book if you are available. The video is in my YouTube channel, YouTube/JoeJustice0. After completing the video, we ask the Scrum Masters to remove the impediment of everyone in their teams having a clean sheet of paper and a pen, or in the case of online teams, a cleared whiteboard space. The paper is still where it was placed yesterday for the build exercise, and the Scrum Masters have learned how to self-serve the team. All team members, very shortly, have paper or a whiteboard space, including the product owners and the Scrum Masters themselves. We are about to play a game published by Jim Benson on October 1st, 2012, the context switching game. And I have a link to it cited in 2012. Jim then cited an earlier source, which I don't have in this book yet. Hopefully future versions of this book can give credit to the even earlier version of the context switching loss game done this way in a 3-column A-B format. We ask all attendees to draw 3 columns on a sheet of paper. We ask them to time themselves using their phones as they fill in the 3 columns, according to the table we present to the class. At first, we show only the table on the left and ask all attendees to fill in the table row at a time. The first row would be AI1. We ask all attendees to start their timer and begin on their own. Early finishers set their pens down very quietly, unsure if they've followed the rules correctly. Then finishers start to set their pens down a little more loudly than they need to, realizing they were relatively fast and are understandably proud of their achievement. Later finishers sigh as they lay their pens down. Human psychology is fascinating in groups and is remarkably similar, but not the same, all around the world and from company to company. More egalitarian companies have more smiles and time spent looking at their own paper after finishing, and more upright posture. More command and control culture companies have more kinked necks, posture and arms low over the paper, almost hiding it, or an overly confident erect posture, but an arm over the paper obscuring the result. In command and control culture cases, people look left and right very soon after finishing, scanning the room. When all or almost all people have finished, the instructor has an opportunity to shape the culture of the room at that moment. We recommend speaking a little more slowly, a little more quietly, to create an air of concentration. Smile while you speak, gently and relaxed, to create a relaxed and craft person mindset. The mood may be best, according to our theory of education for the Scrum Master Seminar, if it is forgiving with a smile to anyone fast or slow, cheerful and interested and non-judgmental. The instructor puts the emphasis of their interest on the craft and not the people doing it, setting aside all the people's interesting personalities and needs and circumstances. Now, as you are finishing, please write down your time in seconds. Please write it down because we'll be clearing the time on your phones to time something else. As you are finishing, please turn your paper over and upside down. Please write 3 more columns. I would like you to time yourself filling in the same table, but this time column at a time. The first column would begin with A, B, C. When you have finished, please write down your time. Please begin on your own when you are ready. Timing here matters critically for classroom control. If the instructor speaks while some people are still finishing, they feel too slow and often become slightly dejected or even defensive, sometimes checking out of the class, and at the worst case, leaving before the class is finished, or more commonly, being less active during team discussion. If the instructor waits too long after the first finishers have set their pens down, conversation begins and erupts in some cultures, and the instructor loses the teachable moment, which will frame the subsequent team conversations that the instructor really does want. Significant talking before the learning objectives has been presented reduces the impact, memorability, and focus of the learning objective. Instructors, please do your best here. As you are finishing, we would like you to complete some math. Your first time, A, minus your second time, B, will give you a new number, C. C divided by your first number, A, will give you the number we want, D. Please calculate your number D. Write it down, circle it, and hand it to your Scrum Master. Scrum Masters, when you have received all your team's number Ds, please average them. Write your team's average number D on the group Scrum board. Thank you. Here we show a group Agile board from a Scrum Master seminar with 10 teams. Note the column D, which the Scrum Masters from each team have filled in. The instructor, in this case Joe Justice, averages the number Ds to create an average for the class. Now, statisticians will be very quick to note we cannot take an average of an average without having teams with higher team member count being underrepresented and teams with lower team member count having greater effect on the final number. In this case, all teams have almost exactly the same amount of people on each team, and an average of an average is statistically relevant. This is true in most Scrum Master seminars, which begin with self-organization as described in Chapter 1, Introduction. The instructor next shows Weinberg's table of context switching loss. Number of projects for a team or an individual being 1 is 0% context switching loss mentally switching context between one project and another. However, when a team or an individual has two projects simultaneously, Weinberg predicted, and later Joe Justice measured, a 20% loss as we switch context from project A to project B. With three projects simultaneously for a team or an individual, there's a 40% loss. Four projects, a 60% loss. And some teams and some individuals have five projects at once, which is a 75% total loss across their workday. Gerald Weinberg theorized that if a professional worked on one project all day, none of their time at work would be lost from mentally switching context between multiple projects. This makes good sense so far. Weinberg further theorized that if a professional worked on two projects throughout the day, 20% of their total time at work that day would be lost, mentally switching context between the two projects. Here we simulated three projects. Weinberg theorized 40% of our time at work would be junk. We might as well go home after lunch and not come back until tomorrow. What happened? The instructor shows the actual average number D for the class, which is now clear as the percentage waste between working on one project at once until it is done versus multitasking across just three projects. In this case, the projects are even highly similar. They are writing characters in a row from a sequence. If the projects are more different, we may assume the context switching loss would be even greater. This starts to drive the point home. The expressions around the room show it. Eyes light up. Some people laugh nervously. Some people become very quiet and introspective. It is important as the instructor to reinforce the point immediately. Weird, Joe will often say, to trigger a laugh and the emotional release that comes with it. Then, in reassuring but business monotone, this happens every class. The Agile Business Institute has kept the data from running this exercise 71 times. In Europe, in Asia, in North America, in South America, and in Australia. In military groups, in special forces groups, in some of the wealthiest companies in the world, in schools, in Ivy League universities, with entire classes of only big three consultancies. And the average number D has supported Weinberg's hypothesis 100% of the time. What this means for our companies is that if our Scrum teams are able to monotask, Project A finishes 500% faster than if the team works on A, B, and C at once. Project B completes 250% faster. Project C completes 167% faster. If more than three projects are worked on simultaneously, the results are even more dramatic. Some Agile Business Institute clients had as many as 27 projects active at once in one team. In one such case, the team had completed no projects 3 years running. Management, once again, fully irrationally, expected and commanded all 27 projects be completed this year. After seeing this data, the team was given permission to try working on one project at once. 19 projects were completed that year. 8 were eliminated as no longer relevant.